Welcome to the Gary Neville podcast, and it's freezing.
Exactly that. Hello, everybody. It's the Gary Neville podcast, delivered to you for the first time ever today from the Hill Dickinson Stadium, where Tottenham have created a very interesting look at the top of the Premier League after a really interesting weekend. Arsenal top, Bournemouth second, Tottenham third, Sunderland fourth, and then Manchester City and Manchester United together on points in fifth and sixth. It's been a gripping weekend, actually, Gary. We'll come to them one by one, but just an oversight of the whole thing.
Yeah, an interesting weekend. Maybe I'm just thinking primarily about Manchester United going up into fourth and Liverpool losing last night and being below them. Sunderland going up into, I think, were they second at one point?
They were, yeah.
And then, obviously, Bournemouth have now gone up into second, and Tottenham, who last weekend were having a really poor season, now having a great season. It seems like it's crazy. You know, one week we're thinking managers are under pressure, the next week they're in the top six, and yeah, it's good. I mean, look, what I would say is that this league, at this moment in time, has only really got one consistently good side every single week, and that's Arsenal, who are playing at level. Obviously, Bournemouth and Sunderland are just sensational, and well done to them. And I'm talking about the top teams; they're all over the place and have been for much of this season, apart from Arsenal. So, yeah, a really interesting season. It's something that none of us expected, and we don't know what's going to happen week in, week out. And let's hope that continues.
Absolutely so. So let's deal with this game. What was good about Tottenham today?
Well, they did the things that sometimes you, certainly last season and the season before for part of it, were thinking that they weren't capable of doing, and that's being reliable when they're not playing well. Can they withstand pressure? Can they soak up, a team putting balls into their box? They've done that today. I think that they defended really well. The goalkeeper looks a lot better. There were times when, I'm not 100% on him now, but I just think that there is an element of him looking more solid than he has been. Van der Ven looks, he's always looked great. Van der Ven, you just look at him with that left foot and the way he strides forward and his presence, but he's just, 5 goals from set pieces. You start to add that to your game as well. Danso, I thought, did well alongside him. Spurs have got a lot of players out. I don't think they played well today. It's mad. Football is like that sometimes, where David Moyes will wipe the scoreline out, which you can never do, unfortunately, because it's the only thing that matters at the end of a football game. But it's not. I think David Moyes will look at the team's performance today and think that we did a lot of very good things. We could have had a goal in the first half. It was disallowed. There were a couple of big chances for Beto and some great saves from Vicario. So I don't think it's all doom and gloom for Everton. It's just obviously disappointing when you get beat 3-0. But from a Spurs perspective, I think particularly in that second half, for half an hour, they had to withstand a lot of Everton pressure, set pieces, corners, balls into the box, and they stood up to it, and that takes some doing. To win away from home in the Premier League, I don't care who you are, whether you're Tottenham Hotspur, Sunderland, the champions Liverpool or Manchester City under Pep Guardiola, to win away in the Premier League is always a great achievement, and Tottenham have done that today, and those 3,000-4,000 Tottenham fans in that far corner will have a great journey home.
And so given the robustness that you've seen in what you rightly describe as an unspectacular game, really, can you find it in yourself to really believe in Tottenham going forward?
Yeah, I like the manager a lot, and what he has to do is, there'll be that balance, won't there? So you've had this sort of, if you look at Tottenham over the last 5, 6, 7 years, when you look at the period where Jose Mourinho and Nuno was in for a short period and Conte, there was some sort of quite large criticism from Tottenham fans about the quality and style of football. And then we went to Ange Postecoglou, who brought amazing football for about 3 or 4 months. I thought it was absolutely sensational to watch. 5 or 6 months. And even when they were getting beat last season, some of the football, the combinations, it's hard. I often said that about watching Ange's Tottenham teams. It's bloody hard to make a team play like that. You put those combinations together. And I think that the style was there, but obviously the results weren't there, particularly in the Premier League, and they won a trophy at the end, which was fantastic. What I think Thomas Frank's going to try and achieve is the balance between the two of becoming really difficult to beat, because that's what a football team is, that balance between being really difficult to beat and defensively very good and structurally sound, and then having that ability to flip from that shape into a good attacking shape, which means that you've got some excitement and some thrill and some risk going forward. Today, I felt there was more the defensive side of it and the more the rigour of the defending part, rather than the sort of element of excitement going forward. I didn't think they carried much excitement in their attack, which is surprising because you've got Simons out there, you've got Kolomoani, you've got Brendan Johnson over on the right-hand side, kudos. You've got 4 players there who can perform and deliver, but if you've got your back 4 more solid and your midfield 2 a bit more pragmatic, it does hamper that 4 up front being able to have the sort of combinations to play. You do need that balance through midfield, but they're missing quite a few players. You think about Maddison missing and Kulusevski and Solanke and then Romero and Udogi, probably miss someone out as well, but they've got a lot to come back. If they can get the players fit and they can keep on picking up points when they're not at their best, and Thomas Frank can just continue to keep working with his team. He's a manager that I think everybody likes, whether you're a Tottenham fan or not. They've got a real good chance of building. They've got a good group of players anyway. But I think they can build on something that means that they can become a top 4, top 5 team again, which is obviously something that they would need at the size of the club they are.
And of course, they would benefit if other top clubs, as they seem to be at the moment, keep dropping points, losing games. And this is a weekend when City and Liverpool and Chelsea. Have all lost. I think clearly Liverpool is the lead story, if you like, because they've lost 4 in a row. How are you reading their situation?
It's interesting. There's obviously, when you come to Everton, there's quite a few Liverpool fans work here. The stewards actually that let you into the car park, and obviously I'm sure that when you go to Anfield, there's Everton fans who work there as well. It's obviously a very close community, but there's some Liverpool fans on the car park that I ran into earlier, really worried about the manager, worried about sort of what was going on. And I'm not in that place, but what I don't do when I come to Liverpool is ever doubt their knowledge of their football team. They intently watch everything that's going on, and it's such a close-knit community that they always find out about things. But look, I actually think there's quite a few of those games that they've lost where I felt as though they could have won. Flipping it the other way, if they'd taken the chances. What they have to sort out is earlier on in the season, I felt as though their full-backs weren't right, and maybe Konate at times wasn't right, but Van Dijk was holding them together and Alisson was in goal, and you've got 2 world-class performers there, but the virus is catching. It's not just going now into the left-back, who I think now it's becoming a worry, the left-back. Kirkes is becoming, he scored last night, but watching him, he has to be taken out, I think. I'm worried about the right back. Frimpong's not a right back. Conor Bradley's being given his head, and I'm supportive of that because I think there's a lot of talent there, but it's difficult when your team are conceding goals and you're trying to sort of, that pressure's on. And I did say a couple of weeks ago, I think maybe last weekend it was, when we were doing the podcast after the Liverpool United game with Jamie Carragher, I just said, look, there were times at United when we were conceding goals. It does remind me, Arne Slot's Liverpool do remind me of our team a little bit. We went through these mad periods where we would concede goals, always looked like we were going to score, but we were all over the place, and that wasn't all the time. But there were moments when I remember these things happening, and you could then think that what he would do is he'd obviously have 2 centre-backs, but he might put John O'Shea at left-back and me at right-back, or Wes Brown at right-back, and almost go to 4 centre-halves, and then really narrow the midfield and make them a lot more solid and say, right, okay, let's just build a foundation off the back of that. Because one thing you can guarantee with Salah, Ekitike, Wirtz, Isak, Gakpo, and the others that they've got, Chiesa, they'll score goals. So us 7 plus the goalkeeper are responsible for making sure that we're solid and we're not open all the time and we're not exposed. And it sounds quite defensive, and it sounds like sort of going back to base camp and sort of starting from scratch. But sometimes you have to do that when everything's crazy and everything's chaotic and everything's mad, which it is for Liverpool at the moment. You just have to find sort of what would be a strong foundation, and that means putting players in there that ultimately can keep a narrow back 4, prevent spaces, win your duels, win your set pieces, make sure you don't give easy goals away, play it forward a bit quicker than you have been and stop popping it through midfield, and just be a little bit more direct, knowing that front 3 will win you games. And that happened at United a lot, and I just wonder whether it's a time now for Arne Slot just to simplify and pull it back, because if he carries on playing Kirkes at left back and he carries on playing Bradley at right back, and they carry on being as exposed as they are in midfield, you'll keep getting the same results, or you'll keep basically every single week going into a game flipping a coin and thinking, well, are we going to win or are we going to lose? And that can't be what Liverpool are about, the way in which they performed in this last 12 months. So look, I like the manager a lot. I like his way of working. I like his manner in press conferences. Doesn't look like there's any panic there from him, but deep down I think he's going to have to interfere with this. He cannot just keep each week allowing the same things to happen, and that's what is happening when it goes on. I always say, 1 mistake, it can happen. 2, you start to get a little bit worried. 3, you maybe have to intervene. And 4, it becomes a pattern of what you are. And that's where we're at now with Arne Slot's Liverpool. It's a pattern of what they have become in this first 2 months of the season. And yeah, he's going to have to do something different. And the only thing that I can think of is really narrowing that back 4, really making sure that midfield 3 are tight, and allowing that front 3 just a little bit more freedom to go and win games, but to say to those 7, be a little bit more safe in your way in which you play. Don't open us up as much. Don't go forward as much. Don't sort of play as riskier passes and be a bit more direct. Because, yeah, it's a worry. You have to deal with it now. It's not just a blip anymore. It's becoming something that's a concern to Liverpool players and Liverpool fans, and they can't be down there 7 or 8 points behind, or they are behind Arsenal. That's not where they need to be.
No, well, that's a really thorough answer on Liverpool. And just ticking off the other big clubs who've lost this weekend, we move on to Manchester City. And if I may, in order that we don't miss out on the clubs that are overachieving, talk to me about Manchester City in the context of the fact that next Super Sunday is Manchester City against Bournemouth, which becomes, for that reason, doubly interesting.
Yeah, Manchester City, I have to say, just aren't Manchester City anymore that we've seen for years. Amongst the best teams you'll ever see in the Premier League and in English football, but they're not that. There's some players in there that sounds really harsh, but they're average, and they've never had average players. They've always had exceptional players in every position. And when you drop below that standard in your recruitment, and we've seen that in the last couple of years, they've still got some fantastic players. But when you couple the recruitment over the last couple of years with some players ageing and sort of just losing their little bit of spark, which is natural, you end up with a team that don't deliver as much. And they're still in a sort of half-decent position. They'll still probably finish in the Champions League, which is fine in a season. But when you're judging Pep Guardiola and where he's been and where this Manchester City have been over this last 7 or 8, 9 years, you know, they're well below the standard, and they look like they can get beat in any single game of football. And that's unusual. And they're not even amazing anymore to watch, as in sort of the play. It's a bit almost like a hybrid between a bit direct, a bit of the old Pep in terms of his passing, a little bit scruffy. I'm not quite sure what it is. It falls in between a team that have just lost their identity. And I always felt Pep Guardiola had he was the ultimate manager of identity. You talk about sort of philosophy. The first words out of your mouth would have been Pep Guardiola. Pep Guardiola's philosophy. The whole of English football and European football have copied this for 8 years, but it almost feels like Manchester City themselves have sort of lost that. And you know, it doesn't surprise me when they lose games now, and that's, you know, exciting for the rest of the Premier League. We want a competitive Premier League. We want teams that can beat each other. It's amazing to see Bournemouth and Sunderland up there. It's amazing to see that there aren't teams that have come up from the Championship down in the bottom 3. That's fantastic for us all to see. That's what we wanted. So we can't complain. But for Manchester City fans, they're just going to have to obviously just accept a lower standard for a year or two, because it's not quite right for them. And well done to Unai Emery and Villa, because they were down in the dumps a few weeks ago, and they can see themselves sort of pushing them right back up there. Are they in 7th?
Yes, they are.
Yeah, they're in 7th,
exactly right, yeah.
and they had a terrible start to the season.
Yeah, so Chelsea's the other one to sort of complete the set. And again, in order not to miss out on people who are doing really well, this is an answer, obviously, in the context of Sunderland, and a fabulous win for them at Stamford Bridge.
Yeah, I mean, look, Chelsea, again, inconsistent. I mean, what you want in life from everybody that you work with is consistency and reliability, and particularly at the top level and in a high-performance environment. And we're talking about all these teams, you know, Liverpool, Manchester United, Manchester City, Chelsea. They've all been inconsistent at parts of this season, and they need to try and find that. Chelsea, I thought, were fantastic against Liverpool a few weeks ago. I thought they were awful a week or two before that at Old Trafford. You know, when they got back to 10 men in the second half, 10v10, I just thought that they were nowhere near enough. So you're watching them 1 week here, the next week here, and that's not good enough. You know, the money that has been spent on these squads, the managers have got to get more out of them. And look, is it the players that have been recruited for these clubs, or have the managers just dropped off? I think we're seeing that. You know, obviously Pep Guardiola's still here, but there's no doubt there was a period 5-6 years ago when the managers, I think, in the league were all the very best in Europe. And when those managers have left one by one, apart from Pep, it's got to a point where you see that the football just drops. I think the managers are the most important people in the Premier League. We need the best managers in Europe, and then obviously I think we'll get the best teams along with that. So, for Chelsea, yeah, they'll be really frustrated, and they're up and down like a yo-yo. Sunderland, from the first game of the season, they played against West Ham, and I know a lot of teams have beaten West Ham since, but just their approach, the physicality, the speed of their attacks, their counter-attacks, their aggression, I'm all for that. And I think it's come back into football in this last couple of years. I think one thing that the teams have done this year that have come up, they've respected the physicality of the Premier League. We know the talent in here is great, but the actual and the football and technical ability, but you've got to be physically matching every single team home and away. And that's what Sunderland are doing. And it's a brilliant result. I crave the idea of Sunderland, and God bless them this week, Sheffield Wednesday, Middlesbrough, those types of clubs from the north of England that are great First Division and Premier League clubs, in my mind, getting back into the league and thriving and doing well, and that's what Sunderland are doing. So it's great for the Premier League and great for English football.
100%. We will, of course, get to Arsenal, but there's another team in the top six now that you used to play for. And you had one of your utopian Saturdays, didn't you, where Salford won at Gillingham?
Yeah.
And then you got to watch Manchester United, and
Yeah.
I was there too at Old Trafford. And I must say, I don't say it quite felt like the old days, but there was a bit of a feel, wasn't there?
There was. It was such an important game because I think straight away after Liverpool, which was sensational, any win at Anfield just feels rare and special when you're a Manchester United player or a fan. But then all the way through the week, you've just got that thing in the back of your mind. Don't mess it up now. Don't cock it up. You know what I mean? Don't go back the way. Don't take one step forward and three back, because you'll end up back where you're questioning the manager again, you're questioning the system again. So it was such an important game, not just for the three on the row. It was obvious that Manchester United would go up into the top six, not maybe as gloriously as they have with all the other teams losing that have lost up there. But it was obvious that Manchester United were going to sail back up the league, and it was a game they couldn't lose. And Brighton have got a great record against United. But I thought the football was good. I actually thought in the first 10 minutes, what I actually was most impressed with United was in the first 10 minutes, I thought that what they did, they tried to go a little bit high press. And I saw De Ligt jumping out onto Welbeck. Shaw was really aggressive and actually continued to be aggressive. But what it meant was that they felt like there was gaps everywhere for Minte and Welbeck and Kadioglu on the right hand side to run through. And I thought, this is going to be dangerous. This is going to be a problem. And I think they got a couple of warning signs and then they just sat back a little bit. And something, it's not a problem for them. As long as they're able to actually not do it for the whole game and they have to come out of that shape. Manchester United being with the back five and then that sort of what would be four in midfield and the sort of, or three in midfield, or two in midfield, but the two coming back in with Šeško up front and being compact for 5-10 minutes and stopping the flow and suffocating the game and then getting your football back. That's fine. There's no problem with that. So they did that, I thought, after 10 minutes well. They got back into the game. And then the big thing for United is that Cunha and Mbeumo they're players who I love watching in a red shirt. Are they the best players that will ever wear a red shirt? Are they the best forwards that Manchester United have ever had? That's still to be seen. But what I like about them is their hunger, their courage to take the ball. They're positive. They do everything I think United forwards should do. Now, they'll make mistakes. They'll give goals away. It's Cunha's first goal of the season, so he's missed a lot of chances earlier on in the season, as Mbeumo did as well. But what I can see is the intent is there to do the right thing every single time. Get on the ball, make runs in behind, take people on, be a threat. Make sure that if you lose it 5 times, you go and get it a 6th time. All those things that I've heard all my life of the values of a forward at United. Go and try and win your team the game. Shoot from anywhere. Whatever it is that you think you can see, go and smell and do it. And I just think that they do really demonstrate that. And those two up front, I said just before about Liverpool, about where the Liverpool sort of, you 7 think about keeping a clean sheet and let your front 3 win the game. There's a bit with United, if that back 5 can just do a job with the goalkeeper, who, by the way, the goalkeeper looks like he's a lot more solid and stable than the other two. I like goalkeepers, to be fair, who've got a composure to them, who've got a relaxed manner. You can see it in Lamans. I don't know how to pronounce his name. I say Lemons and they're going Lamans. But Lamans is someone who looks composed, and that's not easy. I've said it before, that's the toughest job, I think, that you can possibly have, is to be a United goalkeeper. So he's settled in well. And then your 2 in midfield, and I say 2 because Casemiro did really well, but Bruno Fernandes you've got to give a bit of freedom to, because he's a special player. But if you can have some out those two up top that are free to go and win you the game, and the other 7 or 8 can just contribute in and around it and provide a support system to them, I think United will have a very good season. I said at the start of the season I thought they would finish in the top 4, but that's just me being me on Monday Night Football with Carragher. I didn't think they would finish in the top 4. I actually thought it would be 5th, 6th or 7th. But the way in which this season's panning out, the 3 weeks that they've got to prepare between every game is a massive advantage to be able to get everybody ready and sort of keep everybody fit. So, yeah, a lot of... And we're only a week or so away where I was thinking the manager was under pressure, by the way, so we've got to be really careful here because we could be there again in a couple of weeks. It's that type of season. It's that type of feeling. But there's something there that I like. What I do like also is that, and I hear this, a few weeks ago I was worried about the players buying into the system and the way of playing, and I truly was. But what I was never worried about was the fact that this idea that, you know, sometimes when you hear managers have lost the changing room, no, that's never happened with Amorim. They really like him. I think they like him a lot, the players. They think that, you know, you can see that when he speaks on something. He's authentic, he's honest to a fault at times, really, when you think about his press conferences. But how can you have a go at someone for being honest? So I think the players really like him and want to do well for him. And I think that's come through in the last week or so. So it's been a really good week for United. Amorim's best week in the job, his most important week in the job, but got to keep going. Nottingham Forest next weekend. Just make every game a must-win, because the fact of the matter is it keeps everybody happy. You know, if Manchester United can win at Forest next week, and they can win at Forest next week. They're going to have to compete, but they can win at Forest next week. They go for a big game against Tottenham, I think, in a couple of weeks, and that'll be really interesting. So I think, look, where they were pre-international break to post-international break, I think it's been a big period for Ruben Amorim. He's got himself back on track. I think people are now just starting to think, right, okay, something could happen here for him.
Yeah, I think we've nearly done our time, but we can't not mention Arsenal, of course. If I was an Arsenal fan, given everything that's going on beneath them, I wouldn't be able to control the thought that, come on, this year. I mean, they now have a little bit of a cushion, and they seem to be the one who week on week are doing it. 1-0 again, that does it. What are you thinking?
No, Peter, you're absolutely right. I said it earlier on in the week on a podcast. I said that this has got to be them, hasn't it? This has got to be their year. Now, a few Arsenal fans I see said that basically that's just me applying pressure to them. It's not applying pressure to them. I've actually had Arsenal to win the league the last 3 years. This is the 4th on the bounce that I've had them to win the league. But they're not necessarily miles better than last year, but they're repeating their levels of consistency. And that's all they're going to have to do this year to win the league. They're not going to have to go and get 100 points. They're not going to have to go and get probably even 90, 95 points to win the league. I just think they're going to have to basically get to the levels that they can achieve. Mid-80s, high 80s will win them this title. And they can do that. The words I mentioned before about the other teams, inconsistent, unreliable, that's not this Arsenal team. They're very reliable. You can trust them. The way in which they defend is fantastic. They're all around each other. They don't concede goals. They've got a threat up front in multiple areas. They've not got a sensational centre forward, but they've got a battering ram up there who's honest as a day is long, and that I think can work for them. But they've got Eze, they've got Saka, they've got Madueke, obviously, who's not in at the moment, Martinelli, Trossard. They've got lots of players who can contribute goals. They've got Rice, who can obviously deliver in set pieces. They've got 4 fantastic fullbacks and 3 excellent centre-backs, and Mosquera's come on again today, and they've not seen a drop in performance. So there are a lot of very good things going for Arsenal. It's about making sure now they don't get carried away. It's about making sure they just keep doing the same things. They don't need to do anything spectacular here. Just keep doing your jobs. Keep doing what you do, and you will win this league. It's yours to win. And that's not, I'm not saying it's yours to lose. That would be applied pressure. It's yours to win. This is your title, Arsenal. And I've never really felt that sure before. And it's so early in the season. It's madness for someone with the experience that I've got of winning titles to say that it's yours to win at this stage. But it really is. Honestly, and that's not being overconfident for them. It's not placing undue pressure on them. They must feel it themselves. The Arsenal fans must feel it. They must know that this is the moment that Arsenal can get back on top. And it's an incredibly huge football club who can only ever, in my opinion, measure themselves by winning a Premier League title. This idea for 20 years that we've seen, they've got in the Champions League, and that acceptance of what I would class as failure for a top club, this is a moment for Mikel Arteta, for these players, for Arsenal to sort of represent themselves as being the best in the country. And the chance and the opportunity is there for them. They've got to go and take it.
Great stuff. One final item, and that is for me to say congratulations to you on your entry into the Premier League Hall of Fame. I thought it was a lovely image, because I know Brian Robson is your boyhood hero.
Yeah.
He handed it over to you. So as brief or as long as you want, a word on winning that. It must have meant a fair bit to you.
Do you know something? I got told about it about a week ago. I didn't know that Brian was presenting me the trophy. So that was a surprise yesterday. So when he walked down the tunnel and I was there, I mean, for the Manchester United fans will know that he's my absolute hero. If you're between the ages of, well, I don't know, 45 and maybe 55, 60, Brian Robson was your hero. Simple as that. You'll have loved Norman Whiteside, you'll have loved Mark Hughes, you'll have loved Gordon McQueen, you'll have loved other players along the way, Arthur Albiston and everybody, but Brian Robson was the man. He was the man that sort of, in a time where Manchester United weren't winning league titles, was the shining light. A incredible player, someone who I think set the standards for England and for Manchester United, and was my hero without a shadow of a doubt. My inspiration in my childhood, and also someone who actually I was blessed to have played in his very last game. My Premier League debut was Brian Robson's very last game in the Premier League for Manchester United. So that was a special moment back in 1994, 31 years ago. So yeah, it was a really nice moment. I don't really do sort of personal accolades. I used to sometimes get voted into the PFA Team of the Year, and I used to think that was a really nice thing. And similarly yesterday, the fact that award was voted for by the 24 people who'd won the actual award previously, I think makes it more special, because they're the people who used to play against and play with. And then obviously, back in the day, the PFA team was exactly the same. So, yeah, I always feel incredibly lucky and privileged to just have played under the greatest manager, with an incredible staff, with great captains and great players alongside me that elevated me, inspired me every single day when I went into that changing room. And my football career seems like a distant memory, feels like it never existed sometimes. I always feel like, I'm 13, 14 years out of the game, but it just feels so long ago now. But it will always be the most special time of my life. And then the two most important groups of people I suspect, I know, were the fans who, again, there's nothing better than think about those Tottenham fans travelling home tonight. If United won away from home and you sent the United fans home on a journey happy, or even at Old Trafford with the 70,000 of them, they were absolutely amazing. Then obviously my family. I know my dad would be proud, and my mum is, so, and my brother and sister. So yeah, nice moment for me. But yeah, let's look forward to next week. I'm going to America next weekend.
Enjoy.
I'm going to New York, and I'm going to do some work over in America for the Premier League, which is always nice.
Fantastic.
Thank
Good
you.
on you, Gary.
Thanks very
Well
much.
done.
Thank you.
Well done.
Thank you.